Hi, everybody. This is Debbie Spiliotopoulos. I want to welcome you to our second Safe Walking Summit. This is the first one we've done virtually. We have a great turnout. I am a senior environmental planner at the Northern Virginia Regional Commission, the Regional Planning District in Northern Virginia, and I staff bicycle and pedestrian safety program at for Share Virginia Roads. A quick plug to follow Share Virginia Roads on social media and check out our website. I am so pleased that we have a really great turnout and a really wonderful group of presenters. We have over 126 people who've signed up for the webinar. I want to just recognize that we have people from all over Virginia, DC, and our neighbors in Maryland. And I want to also recognize Matt DeFerranti, who's from the Arlington County Board, who is participating, as well as Cassidy Ketchum from Alexandria, Vice Mayor Elizabeth Bennett Parker, her office. This is a testament to the activity, interest, and importance of safe walking in our region and our state. And so I'm so pleased to partner with Kate Kraft of America Walks and my colleague Corey Miles, who is staffing the chat. I'm also pleased to partner with many of you as members of the Technical Advisory Committee for Share Virginia Roads, and who have directed our efforts and provided so much wisdom and leadership. In these recent difficult months, the importance of time outside and safe walking conditions has become more evident to the broader public. So some brief housekeeping before we get started. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Corey Miles, who's going to be manning the chats for us. This is going to be a very tight survey. It's kind of a buffet. It's kind of a buffet rather than a nice dinner. The many initiatives we're grappling with safe walking. So we welcome comments and questions, but to keep things moving, they may not all get answered. But please make full use of the chat. We have we'll run some polls to gauge your interest and get your feedback. And NVRC plans to share all responses in follow-up emails, as well as we're hoping to have a participants list and a list of resources. I hope you all have access to the agenda. I'm going to also load it right this minute so you can get it. I hope that happened. I think that you have access to the Pedestrian Summit agenda. And I also have the PBIC Pedestrian Safety Background document and the Share Virginia Roads Pocket Guide, which is something that we produce through the Share Virginia Roads program. I want to thank the Virginia DMV Highway Safety Office for funding the Share Virginia Roads project. And I am also pleased to introduce Kimberly Burt, Deputy Director of Programs at DMV, and Dwight Jenkins, Pedestrian and Bicycle Coordinator at DMV, to welcome you to this virtual summit. So I'm going to share my screen with Dwight.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kimberly Burt, and as Debbie's indicated, I'm the Deputy Director of Programs within Department of Motor Vehicles for our Highway Safety Office. I personally want to thank Northern Virginia Regional Commission for all of the work that they continue to do in regard to pedestrian and bicycle safety. Our goal, we're working towards zero, and all of the work that you're doing through the commission is helping us get to that goal. So I did want to share a bit of information in regard to data. If you're not familiar, on the DMV's website, which is dmvnow.com, under highway safety, we do have a resource that's available to anyone in regard to traffic crash data. So if you're looking to drill down more into data, feel free to go out to dmvnow.com and go under the Highway Safety tab and look for traffic crash data. And that's where you can drill down into data. And you can look for pedestrian as well as bicycle data and other data points as well. So again, thank you, Northern Virginia Regional Commission, for hosting this summit this afternoon. With us today, I have Dwight Jenkins. He's our statewide bicycle and pedestrian coordinator. I talked about data, but he's going to talk about what the data is showing right now when it talks about or relates to the pedestrians and bicycles here in Virginia. So the screen that you have there, it is what Dwight will talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to Dwight. Again, thanks to everyone who's joining the summit this afternoon.
Thank you, Kimberly. The pedestrian and bicycle categories have multifaceted concerns in the highway safety arena, which include infrastructure, behavioral, health, and education. These categories have risen to lead federal, state agencies, advocacy groups, and volunteers to address the increasing growth and use of the transportation system. I welcome you and thank you for your interest and participation in the Walking Summit, hosted by the Northern Virginia Regional Commission in collaboration with America Walks. So the slide on your screen indicates decreasing crashes, fatalities, and injuries. Each category can still use improvement as we work to move towards zero. This data that you're looking at is preliminary data that has compared the year 2019 from January 1 through August 10th of each year, 19 and 20 consecutively, and then was divided out into pedestrians and bicyclists. And you can see everything on there for yourself where we are making an impression in reducing all categories, if you will. Now, not surprisingly, this year's data, January 1, 2020, through Monday, August 17th, indicate pedestrian fatalities, 18 are highest among 51 to 60 years of age. Reported injuries, which are at 182 currently this year, are led by those that are 21 to 30 years of age. And it's important to remember, at any one time, everyone is a pedestrian. Now, bicyclists in that same category mirrored the age categories for fatalities. 2 for the ages of 51 through 60. And these are down year to date, as you can see, from 9 to 4. And then injuries for bicyclists are the same as pedestrians, 60 for the category of age 21 to 30. So with that said, I do look forward to learning more as we continue this afternoon with this afternoon's webinar. Thank you. And Debbie, if you'd like, you can play that video.
Oh, great.
If you have that.
I will. Let's see if I can figure out how to do it. Let's see. Corey, if you can help me with this, let's see if I can show. I don't know how we play the video. I thought we, maybe I need to be, everybody, I'm sorry. This is my first time using GoToWeb.
And that's fine. The link is there for anybody who would like to go to it at a later time and play the video for themselves. It's a 15-second video in order to get folks to have their eyes meet, because it shows intent as to what your actions may be, so that we can avoid any serious injuries and/or fatalities. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I thought that I could do that, and for some reason I'm having trouble with it. All right, so I will share my screen now, and give over this presentation to Kate Kraft. She has been a huge partner, and I'm just thrilled to be working with her. Can everybody see the screen?
Great. Thank you, Debbie, and thank you to the North Virginia Regional Commission and to the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles. We appreciate the opportunity to work here. I'm Kate Kraft, as Debbie said, with America Walks, and let me just add my thank you and congratulations to all of you for being here. It's so great to see so many people working to make Virginia a safe and inviting place for pedestrians. And based on what we just saw, looks like you're making some progress. Like many of you, I've been an advocate for healthy built environments and walkable communities for decades. And I must say, at times, it's been a pretty lonely place to be. But now it seems like we have this incredible increase in demand for safe, walkable places. And I think that demand is perhaps driven by both the fact that more people are out walking, especially in this time when we all need to find ways to manage the stress, but also just this urgency of concerns around the fact that so many pedestrians have been injured or killed. So today we want to focus on two objectives. The first is to really get an understanding of all the work that's going on in Virginia that's focused on improving pedestrian safety and developing more walkable places. And second, we really want to come away from this with an increase in collaboration and coordination between all of these efforts so that we can accelerate the needed changes and really amplify community impacts. It really is true that we are better together. And Debbie, if you'll advance that slide, let me talk a little bit about who's here today. As Debbie said, at last count, we had 126 people register. That's pretty amazing. Of those, about 50%, 48% to be exact, represent local communities. That's local safe routes programs, local elected officials, local agencies. Another 15% are from state agencies and another 5% from federal agencies. We've got a nice combination here. About 22% of you are from regional organizations, probably mostly North Virginia regional, and the final 10% are really from academic environments or private firms. So you can tell we're going to have multiple perspectives that we can bring to the conversation as we move forward today, which I'm really looking forward to. I think with that, Debbie, I'll turn it back to you to tell us something about what you heard from our participants. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I hope everybody can see the screen and hope it's full size. So the responses, we had a few questions when we started the presentation, when you all registered. And this is based on when we had 105 people registered. We've had some more since, so it's not completely accurate, but just to get an idea, you know, two of the big issues we're going to be talking about are, well, three things really: the kind of the definition, the information available, and then some of the ways we can work together to really make these differences. You know, as with the kind of numbers that we look at, we have a real challenge with looking beyond just transportation issues. You know, it's really becoming a public health issue. So the data sources, and this is kind of reflective of the really great variety of people we have sitting on the call today. A number of people find health and demographic data as critical. Other people are using the treads and crash data, and then other people are using trail counts. And so those are our four areas that we got information from. And then for funding sources, when I have grants, that includes the Safe Routes folks, but a large number, and of course, a lot of the state money is coming from the feds, and the local grants are coming from the feds eventually. So, these are just some of the areas of where the funding is coming from. So with this, I just did some word clouds on the great comments you had, and I'm happy to share the full comments with everyone in the follow-up document. But the big issues that came out of this were the importance of safety and walking and recreation and community and accessibility. And then when we look at the biggest challenges, we're talking about lack of things, need for sidewalks, need for safety, which is, it was pretty consistent across the board. So with that, we've gotten through our welcome, and we're right on time, which is unusual. So hopefully we can keep that. And I'd like to introduce the first person that we're going to talk to is Stephen Reed from Virginia Department of Transportation. He's the Safety Planning Manager. And if someone could, there you are. Hi there. And I'm going to change the presentation to you.
Thank you.
And here you go.
All right.
Did it happen?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. I think, did you get, I think there you go. I see it.
Me?
Yep.
Great.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks for having me this afternoon, everybody. I've been involved with transportation safety, and in particular, bike and ped safety, since I was hit crossing the road going to first grade. And so I have real experience. I've also been hit on my bicycle twice. And so non-motorized safety is a big deal to me. But I started my career actually in England. After college, I went over there and worked for a multinational consultant. And that's where I really got excited about transportation safety, and in particular, what they were doing for bikes and peds in their town centers and the different developments that I was working on at that time in my career. This afternoon, I'm just going to touch on a couple of data items that may be of interest to you to look at a deeper dive and using the data than what Dwight went over from the TREAD system. We receive the TREADS data from DMV pretty much on a nightly basis, and we attach that to our roadway network inventory and are able to do some additional information. So I'm going to talk about that in the pedestrian safe crash assessment for a few seconds, and then spend most of the time with how we're using that and other data sources that we talked about there with our pedestrian safety action plan. So first off, we started doing a deep dive when we started to see the increase in pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries here a few years ago. And we first published in 2016 and have been adding years since then. So in addition to our roadway inventory information, and of course traffic volumes and speed zones and all of that information on top of what the police officer reports, we also looked at Google Earth and Street View to get an idea of what infrastructure was present at the time of the crash. And I'm not going to go into details. I'm going to share a link to the assessment, but there are 5 big takeaways from this. Number one is that over 90% of pedestrian deaths, and it's a very high percent for serious injuries, happen when folks are crossing the road. And so what that indicates is that land use matters. And that's, the fact that people have to get across either to, a desire to get to something on the other side or to get to transit and what's the built environment around it. The other indication, of course, is that the higher volume and speed and wider arterials are an essential issue that we need to address. And so when we looked at the speed zones in there, you can see that the proportion that are fatal versus injury increases as you get into the higher speed zones. And visibility is crucial. We know that a lot of these deaths occur in the dusk and dawn and into the dark hours of the day. And of course, what's interesting is that we see an increase in the fall with the change in the time zone and the increasing shorter days. So that is critical for us when we're thinking about outreach and education, as well as the visibility of our traffic control devices and the ability to add lighting to those areas where we have those desires to cross the street. And finally, talking about the health and opportunity, we have a new health opportunity index information that's at the census tract level from the Virginia Department of Health. And we plotted that over top of the crashes and found a really strong correlation, if you will. Almost 60% of the deaths and injuries occur where there's a very low health opportunity index. And it is a composite of the 14 different measures that you see down in the orange box. The text is small, so hopefully you can look into this and Google search it there on the Department of Health website as to how this composite index includes things like the community involvement, consumer opportunities such as food accessibility, economic opportunity, which of course is big in terms of income inequality and such measures as that, as well as wellness type factors in terms of access to healthcare, etc. So we were really surprised at how strong of a correlation that happened. And so with that, we looked to update our pedestrian safety action plan. It was first initiated in 2018 or completed in 2018. I guess we started it several months before then and looked at three major components. One were where could we improve and strengthen our VDOT policies with regards to improving pedestrian safety in terms of the built environment. The big thing I'm going to focus on, though, is the geospatial analysis that we did to look for where that risk is and where the propensity is to be walking. And then also you see there that there's a toolbox at the end of the report with the countermeasures that work. And so we had several criteria of data that was available to us statewide. And you can see in the initial version of the PSAP, we had the blue measures, which we scored, gave a weighting, if you will, or a score of high, medium, and low. So for example, a 5, a 3, and a 1 weight. And then you can see that we dropped a couple of the low factors there and included the health opportunity index into the mix. And also we were able to get a transit layer from the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation to look at where there was transit provided. And then we looked at the posted speed limit and the urban and rural context. So what was inside of MPO boundaries versus outside, as well as population density. So a bit of an update from the first launch, and we've just posted this online recently. So here's the link. If you search and find the bit.ly short link there, it'll go to our ArcGIS online. And within that link, you'll see links to the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, the original document, to the PED assessment, the deep dive, as well as version 1 and version 2 of the ArcGIS map layers. And just to wrap up, there is the toolbox in the back. We've known a lot of the countermeasures at signalized intersections, and now we're really focusing our resources on the unsignalized intersections with this new document that's available from Federal Highways. It was published as we were finishing up the first version of the PSAP, and we had draft versions of it. And so now we have more countermeasures that are available with known crash reductions for unsignalized intersections. What's becoming popular are these rectangular rapid flashing beacons and the pedestrian hybrid beacons, particularly for mid-block crossings. And there's been some national studies to look at the expected crash reduction. That's your crash reduction factor there, shown in the left of each panel of the expected reduction in those pedestrian crashes. So we have similar information on all the countermeasures that we know and don't know the crash reduction factor for it. So I thank you for your time. There again is the link to that information. A lot more going on in terms of funding for these countermeasures that work. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please contact Mark Cole, our state safety engineer, or myself. Thank you.
Stephen, we
Great,
do
thank
have
you
one
so-
question. This is Corey Miles. I just wanted to make sure that you were able to see the question. It says, what are the dots on the map in the online map?
So let me go back real quick. So the dots are the crashes, and they are color coded by the severity of the injury. And then you can see sort of the green here, that the hotter colors are underneath there in the city of Richmond, but the green are the sort of heat maps, the clustering of crashes, if you will, to look at those. So the PSAP has not only where the clusters of crashes are happening, but also these risk corridors. So you can see the blue and the red lines. Those are different percentiles of the priority corridors that were identified with the factors that I went over.
All right, that was the only question we had. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you.
It's so exciting to see the use of the health opportunities indexes. And just to plug, next week, NVRC is going to be hosting a more in-depth discussion of some of the public health issues as part of our Parks and Public Health. And I wanted to, can someone just let me know if you see, hopefully you're seeing the whole screen for me.
Debbie, we're seeing your advanced screen, so.
I don't understand. Okay, let me, I don't know how to do it. And, we all worked through this before. Do you all see it now? I'm sorry.
No, we still see your side screen, your sidebar there.
All right. Okay, I apologize for that. I'll keep working on it. As I transfer over, I'm sorry, for Dr. Meredith Romito, I'm sorry, who is a behavioral scientist for DMV. And Meredith, I'll go ahead and give you the presentation.
Thank you for having me this afternoon, everyone. My name is Meredith Romito, and I am the behavioral scientist psychologist for the Virginia Multidisciplinary Crash Investigation Team. And my partner is a Virginia State Police trooper. He is not able to be here, so he's going to miss us today. What we do, we are actually housed in the Department of Motor Vehicles in the Highway Safety Office. You just heard Kimberly Burt and Dwight Jenkins. We are all in the same department. And it's interesting because we all have different parts to play in this, especially with, traffic, with what's going on with the COVID and everything else, but it's the multidisciplinary approach essentially. On this team, we work with everyone. Again, Northern Virginia, we are working with different agencies there, and we about a year and a half ago started this team up again, and have had the opportunity, whether it's at the time of a crash or afterward, to start investigating, but again, working with different agencies to see where problem areas are and these trends are taking place. So I'm a psychologist, and my partner is the state trooper. We also work with highway engineers across the state. We, in particular, have the area that I live in, York County, we work with a highway engineer, Phil Fauner. We also have a couple around the Roanoke area. So depending on where the crash takes place, we get in touch with this highway engineer and work very closely. Again, the multidisciplinary approach. So I take a look at human factors. That is my area, whereas Walt, our state trooper, would look at the laws. So then we would have the engineer kind of bring in his expertise as far as the roadway and any kind of engineering, or let's say trees, for example, on Route 5. That's just one we would look into. So human factors, what is that? That's the combination of psychological and physiological factors. We want to see how the human fits with the environment, the human in the vehicle, whether before or after the crash. Those are the kinds of questions we want to ask. And in understanding these human factors, we can understand the needs of the road users, ultimately make decisions based on what could help with performance, even behind the wheel, look at the driver's education. Again, our goal as a whole is to decrease those crashes, injuries, and of course the fatalities on the roadways. Our team picks the crashes not at random. We have been taking a look at multiple variables. We look at anything from cognitive deficits, in particular, the area of the crash where we're seeing trending crashes, like Stephen Reed was just saying, where we have clusters. We want to take a look and see what is going on as far as engineering possibilities to the road, any obstructions, whether we need sidewalks or crosswalks. We take it up and we have a discussion with the Highway Safety Executive Leadership Team to determine if this is really something we need to focus our energy on. Again, in order to decrease the crashes, injuries, and fatalities on the roadway, we want to gain a better understanding of that design. We want to take and educate our communities with what we've learned. We want to improve driver education. Again, it starts young, educating behind the wheel, and more experience we've seen, the better chance we are, at avoiding crashes, at understanding what goes into actually driving or riding that bike. We want to also create highway messaging, and that allows for others, to see what's going on, as well as to get the message out if there's something that's occurring. We just saw one 4th of July that said, "You're not a firework, don't drive lit." So it definitely caught my eye, but again, reminds you of what's going on our roadways. We also want to take a look at that informational outreach, whether it's through social media, and using our connections and multidisciplinary approach to use the agencies to get our information out there. So we have 3 types of reports. We have a crash investigation report. We can take different cases that we've seen. We look through those FR 300s, or we have gone to the crash itself before, after, during, and kind of compile the information and analyze what's going on and come up with recommendations that we feel are appropriate with how to prevent or even decrease these crashes. We also have technical reports, any kind of issue that's going on that we need to address, and lastly, a special report, something in regard to an event maybe that's happened, or maybe there was something that's been passed down to us that someone would like us to look into in a different jurisdiction, for example, and we would look into that and put that out. But these reports are ultimately very important. The goal of the report is to identify areas of need. And in the recommendations, we really focus on education. And again, the driver's education, or just getting education out to maybe the community, schools, for example, churches. And then engineering, we want to make sure that specifically VDOT, we work closely with them and their highway engineer to make sure that there are no roadway issues that we need to address, as well as enforcement. Do we need to get with our law enforcement agencies and, partners and ramp up, some sort of enforcement? We will take those recommendations. We don't just let them sit. We want to create educational programs, follow up. We want to collaborate again with that local law enforcement agency. We actually present at the DMV Highway Safety Office committee meetings. And again, the stakeholders in the communities, they are there to help promote what changes that we may need to implement, or recommendations we need to put into place. We post the reports on the Department of Motor Vehicles website under the Highway Safety Office. You will see a link, and there are archived ones as well from the past, so we will be updating those. But our main goal, again, is communicating and connecting with community partners. That way we can get those messages disseminated. I really appreciate your time today, and if you need to get a hold of the VMCIT, our team is located again in the Highway Safety Office. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Meredith. I just wanted to ask if you could maybe shoot to us a link if there's a direct link on the so that people can access your reports. And just a reminder to everyone that we will be sharing again the resources in a document as a follow-up, because there's going to be loads of great information, as you can already hear. And we had a couple more. Corey, do we have any questions for Meredith or for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had some more questions for Stephen that I actually didn't get a chance to get to. They didn't show up right away, but and there's a couple of questions for Meredith. Do you want me to address Meredith's questions first?
Yeah, and then, I think that would be great. Unless we want to go through them and give John a chance and Chloe, if folks are willing to wait, maybe we can go that way. Or Meredith, since your screen is up, maybe you can answer a couple of questions right now.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll have to read them to you because for some reason the panelists don't see the questions. Let's see here. Does DMV, there's a question from Mike Doyle, does DMV have any way to identify potential future crash locations before a crash happens? Like a hotspot or a dangerous location pre-crash?
Now we have a department that monitors those areas, TREDS department, but when Walt and I actually come through the hotspots, like Stephen was saying, we have an ability to see, hey, 5 crash have happened here, or 4 fatalities in this area. And so that's kind of how we gather our data anyway. Obviously not the only way, but does that answer the question? So we do have the ability to see, hey, there's a lot of, there's trending something here. And so we can look at it. I wouldn't say we can predict anything, but you can say, hey, there's high traffic here. So at this point, there's a lot of crashes happening. Well, why? Again, maybe traffic. Maybe there's a lot of teen drivers driving in that area. So we take a look at, there's multiple topic areas. So teen drivers, mature drivers, distracted drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians, large trucks. So those are the categories we look at.
I would like to piggyback off of what Meredith said. This is Kimberly. She's correct. In addition, in the beginning, I talked about on our DMV website, the traffic crash data resource that's there. There is a tool there that you can click on and you can explore the high crash location map. And going there, you can actually drill down to the locations that are seeing the highest number of crashes.
Great.
In a
And this-
specific location.
And this is Steven. So the PSAP maps that I was showing, that is not predicting crashes, but it's predicting risk and the propensity to walk. So that's where we think we have walkers, and that's where we think the highest risk is based on all those factors that I showed in the table. I will say that the highway safety manual that is published by AASHTO does have a prediction for pedestrian crashes. And so you can look into that for our arterials. And there is a big research project that's just wrapping up that will have even more detailed non-motorized crash prediction in it. So that will be available in the update to the highway safety manual, but that's probably a couple of years away. So there are some methods that are in there now that we're trying to improve upon.
Great.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Let's see here.
Corey, you're sounding really quiet.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. This is a question from David Patton. It says, can you give one example of adding a pedestrian safety question to the Virginia Driver's Manual?
What was
Can I
that question
just
again?
repeat that, Corey? Yeah.
It's a question about, can you provide an example of a pedestrian safety question being added to the Virginia Driver's Manual?
This is Kimberly from DMV. If I'm not mistaken, in the driver's manual, there is a section regard to that. And I do believe that there is a question on the exam, but I would have to check on that. I'm not specific, but there should be at least a question on the driver's license test in regard to pedestrians or bicycles.
And we can follow up with answers as well after this webinar so people can learn more. And Corey, how about one more question and then let's move on to John and Chloe because we have a lot to get through.
Okay, let's see. It says Fairfax County is currently operating a pedestrian death investigation team. Are you coordinating with them?
No, but I would love the information so we could get in contact.
All right. That was a question from Sean Newman, so we'll make sure you are able to connect.
Thank you.
And also we have Jason Long from Fairfax County Police as a panelist a little later. So he is another person I believe on that group. Great. Well, so I would like to go ahead and give the screen over to John Bolacek. And here he is.
Debbie, can you hear me?
Yes, you sound wonderful.
Okay. I don't see any, am I sharing my screen now? I don't see any.
We see it. We see your screen and it
Do you
looks.
see a PowerPoint or do you see two screens?
Yes, we see your PowerPoint, but we also see your slides, which apparently I was having problems with too.
All right, what do you see now? Is it a full PowerPoint or a?
It's with the previews.
Okay, hold on.
Now we don't see anything. There you go.
Okay, now you do just see the PowerPoint?
Yes, it looks perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks everybody. My name is John Belechek. I'm the statewide bicycle pedestrian planner at VDOT. I work in the central office in our planning division. And I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of 2 data sources we maintain and can deploy, and try to talk a little bit about how they can relate to pedestrian safety. The first piece I'm going to talk about is pedestrian counts that VDOT conducts. And there's bicycle mixed in here, but I'll try to focus on the pedestrian aspect of it. But the first I'll mention is the Northern Virginia, the semi-annual bike ped counts through COG, and they do 10 locations in the spring, 10 in the fall. There's an ArcGIS online map that I'll try to get linked in the chat that we can share with you, and I'll try to get all the resources I mentioned linked in the chat as well. But you can browse the ArcGIS online map and see where these have been done before. And these are done with camera counts. The other piece is our statewide count program, which also counts in Northern Virginia, but this is run out of our central office. And we've counted over 200 locations since we kicked things off in 2018. I'll give you just a very quick background because I know we're kind of running behind. But we kind of started off on this doing some permanent counters along the Virginia Capitol Trail after it was constructed. We put another counter in Roanoke next to another VDOT traffic or like vehicle continuous count station. And immediately after a report was released from our research council, we began this program in 2018 and started counting a number of different places. I'll just show you a few of the examples of where we counted. Here's this is a Nickel Bridge in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia. And we pick places to count partially on places that have to make safety decisions. So we use these in planning studies and to make concrete decisions about what to do next. We also do, if we have a free counter, can't count in random places, a variety of facility types and contexts. We almost always leave them out for at least 14 full days. And we always try to be at full deployment with these. If we don't have somewhere to go, we'll put it up somewhere near the office just to get more data that we can reference later. The statewide count program performs screen line counts, which is a segment. It's not at an intersection. And for pedestrians, we can't count crosswalks or intersections, but we can count shared use paths and sidewalks as long as there's a buffer strip and a place to mount the counter. If there's sidewalk right on back of curb and there's no place to put something, it's hard to count there with the equipment we have. You're going to have to use a camera. And here's just a few examples. This is a sidewalk and bike lane we counted in Henrico, a bridge in Richmond for the sidewalk, Arlington and Manchester Street. This was counts we got around an intersection where VDOT did a STAR study. So it was done in conjunction with a study just to see what the volumes were. Another bike lane sidewalk combination in Richmond. Another bike lane sidewalk combination in Richmond. And with the data, we can produce interesting charts and graphs. This is the Capitol Trail in Richmond, and you can kind of see the pattern of really high on the weekends and modest levels on the weekdays, and really big effects when you have rain. That first week, see the rain really bump the numbers down. But this was a sidewalk in the city of Richmond, right next to the VDOT office, actually. And you can see almost the opposite, very low numbers on the weekends and very high numbers on the weekdays, and almost no effects from the rain because people had to work whether it rained or not. So just different patterns we can pick up. We do have a count request form if you need to request counts in a certain location. We'll review those and make a decision on whether we can do that. But we're trying to make this data better by doing seasonal adjustment factors, try to come up with some formulas to make these short-term counts we do, you get the annual averages and integrate with different STAR studies and other quarter studies that our planning division is doing. This is an example of a place in a STAR study where we counted a worn path. There was no sidewalk there, but we wanted to see how many people were walking on that so we could determine, you know, whether it, I mean, clearly there's a worn path and it needs a sidewalk, but doing something like this allows you to kind of look at different sides of the street, look at different alternatives, and see where your limited resources can go the furthest and provide the most benefit to as many people as possible. Another piece of data we maintain is a Virginia bicycle facility inventory. We have shared use paths in here, so it's relevant to pedestrians that way. But this tries to maintain a list of every single shared use path and bike lane and also bike route in the state. And the reason I think it's valuable, and I know a lot of localities have their own inventories, but we cross the, you know, everywhere in Virginia, so we cross the locality line. And also we have all the information of the linear referencing system. This is a VDOT GIS tool, but all our data is on that. So you may have a local inventory, but if you use this one, or if you use this one in addition to your inventory, it makes it really easy to join other layers that you might need to do analysis of something. So all the VDOT traffic volume layers, speed limit, pavement condition, all our planning data that talks about congestion, number of lanes, functional class, is all on the LRS. So it allows you to do a lot more things in GIS if you use this data set. And that's available on ArcGIS Online and is updated quarterly. Another data set I'll mention, although it's not entirely devoted to pedestrian, but we do have shared use paths on here, is our interactive bicycle web map. But it has a lot of different things all in one spot. So you can look at traffic volume, unpaved roads, roadways prohibited to bikes and pedestrians. So there's some things of interest to pedestrians on that map as well. I provide updates to these products in our active transportation newsletter. If you're not signed up for that, I can provide a link in the chat. And then again, we have 4 bicycle pedestrian advisory committee meetings a year, and a lot of the data sources and things I've just talked about have really received good input from this group and helped us improve our programs. So that's always another way to get information about what we're doing and also provide feedback. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present. Here's my contact information, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. I think, Corey, if we could just do one question. I feel like we're really putting the squeeze on Chloe. So is there any question for John?
There is one question.
Okay.
Here from Sean Newman, it says, how does VDOT and DMV assess the suppression of walkers due to unsafe environment for pedestrians? If we had safer spaces for pedestrians, would more people walk?
So that's one of the things we use the counters for. So before after studies, all of our smart scale projects are estimating bike ped volume, and as those are built, we're putting counters up to see what the numbers are going to be after that. So
that sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and contact me if you need more information.
That sounds great. We may have more questions a little later, but let me go ahead and Chloe, I'm going to share with you. So now we've had a lot of state level. So now we're going to go ahead and, oh my goodness, here we go. Now we're going to get the local perspective of how decisions are made. So we have Chloe Ritter from the city of Fairfax.
Great, thank you. Let's make sure I share my correct screen. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, looks beautiful.
Great, okay. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Chloe Ritter. I'm the multimodal transportation planner for the city of Fairfax. So I'm going to provide a pretty brief high-level overview of our walkability goals and some of the programs and policy tools that we use to support those goals. The city has established walkability as a major priority in our long-range transportation plan, which is adopted as part of our comprehensive plan. And these walkability goals emphasize providing more options to get around the city and accessing destinations on foot, especially for the shorter trips, the half-mile, 1 mile trips around town. And that includes creating 15-minute neighborhoods with better walkability near activity centers and other daily needs, increasing access to nature, increasing access to transit, and just generally shifting the mode share for local trips towards non-auto options. To reinforce these goals, the city has developed a number of policies and programs, and I'll walk through a couple of examples of those. So the first example I'll share is that we've started developing a 2-year program funding, like to prioritize our funding and our efforts for developing projects. So every 2 years, we look at our goals and we evaluate how we've been making progress on those goals, and that informs the decisions about where we're going to focus our efforts for the next 2-year program. And this helps us continue progress on long-term projects. For example, on the bottom left of my screen, we're looking at an illustration of Oldley Highway where we're in the process of redesigning this as complete streets. This is one of those longer-term projects that every 2 years we look at it, we see what else do we need to keep this project moving forward until it's completed. An example of another large project on the bottom right is the intersection at Fairfax Circle. And we're just now starting the process to think about how we can reimagine this major intersection and make it more comfortable for pedestrians and other users. So with these longer term projects, we have to start with the vision and start with what kind of alternatives we want to look at. And then over time, with each successive 2-year program, we make sure that we're making progress on those big projects. But we also want to look for smaller opportunities. And on the top right, I'm showing a map of what I would call a spot improvement. There's a neighborhood that's north of Route 50 that has a lot of people that want to walk to shopping centers on Route 50 on Fairfax Boulevard, but they have to go a long way out of their way to get there. And so we're looking right now at a small project that would open up at the dead end of Hill Street that would provide better access. And that really helps us get at our goal of providing better access for 15-minute neighborhoods and better walkability from neighborhoods to what people need to get to on their daily chores, daily errands.
Hey, Chloe, I had a quick question. We had some polls that you wanted to launch, right? Would you like me to launch one of those while you're speaking?
Oh, no, that's okay. You can do that. I think that those polls were just if you wanted to ask some questions in between presentations. They weren't specific to my presentation. So you can launch those whenever you want to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so the next example I'm going to share is, again, within our comprehensive plan, with our transportation plan, we've developed a more detailed street typology. So this policy provides guidance for complete streets improvements when we look at corridor improvements, and it also helps us provide guidance for developers when they're designing frontage improvements. So anytime somebody comes to redevelop their property, we can give them more detailed guidance on what kind of streetscape and sidewalk improvements we most want to see in these locations. So the map at the right shows the street typologies that were adopted in the comprehensive plan, and the images at the bottom show a couple of examples of how different types of streets might be envisioned. For example, an active street where we would want to have on-street parking and a lot of interaction between the sidewalk and the buildings, and just really a much slower, more multimodal street. And on the right is an example of a boulevard where we would have higher volumes of traffic and more separation between the sidewalks and the street. And so these street typologies overlap with the functional classifications like arterial and collector, but it provides a more detailed guidance for the pedestrian environment and pedestrian facilities as it interacts with the adjacent land uses. The final example I'll share is the city's residential sidewalk program. So this program is designed to fill in missing links of sidewalks, and we recently updated it to provide more of a framework for thinking about and prioritizing our local funds for new sidewalk projects. The framework looks at both qualitative and quantitative factors, including transportation network benefits, improving access to various destinations, addressing traffic safety concerns, and looking at the overall feasibility of a project. And this does help us prioritize the local funding that's set aside for filling in the missing links of sidewalks on residential streets. As other people have mentioned before, we have to make sure we're prioritizing our limited resources to be the most effective and give us the most benefit for pedestrian connectivity. So I'll just close with a few other thoughts on some of the things that or some of the challenges we're faced with planning for walkability. We have limited data, limited quantitative data, so we tend to combine that with other data sources such as pedestrian generators in the land use, missing links, what the physical conditions look like, and then we refer to design standards. And it's been really, really interesting to hear what some of the data sources that are available at the state level, and I'm looking forward to hearing what some of the other data sources and other considerations are in following presentations. And then, of course, just want to reemphasize that we are looking at this in the long term. Some projects are quick and easy, but a lot of these projects do take a long time, and take a long time even to just develop consensus, because everybody may agree conceptually that walkability is a really good goal, but then we have to figure out how to make this work with the existing conditions, especially when you're retrofitting this into our cities and suburbs. So we're always looking to expand our planning tool belt, so I'm really looking forward to hearing more about other data sources and other programs this afternoon. And that's all I have, so thank you very much for having me. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Chloe. And I'm going to run the poll again while Corey, if you have any questions.
Yes, I have two comments more. It says this is from Stuart Schwartz, says the elephant in the room is road design, particularly for arterial roads. Did you want to say anything about that?
I mean, I guess it's not so much a question, but I agree that is a challenge, and that when I say it takes a long time to develop consensus, the road users and the stakeholders involved, we do have to make the road work for regional traffic as well as local traffic, and figure out the best way to make pedestrians safer in that environment. So I agree, it's the elephant in the room. That's a good way of saying it.
Yes, and then we have a couple other questions here. For improvements to connectivity that are proposed, how are these funded in the city of Fairfax? Is it local, state, or proffers?
It's a mix of all three. So I mentioned the street. So looking at proffers, for example, I mentioned the street typology. That's a tool that we use a lot when properties come to redevelop, and we ask them to redevelop to these new standards that we've set. So it's something that they do as part of their redevelopment project. So that's one way that we get some small links finished. A lot of the smaller residential sidewalks are locally funded, and then a lot of the really large corridor projects, we do go look for outside funding like Smart Scales. For example, the Old Lee Highway is a large project that has a lot of regional and statewide funding sources in addition to the local support. So it's a mix. We definitely rely on all three.
All right. And then we have one more question here from John Wetmore. It says, how can Fairfax prevent developers from getting exemptions to putting in sidewalks?
So there are things in the city's zoning code, and this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. It's over in the land use side of things, but there are things in the zoning code that set the requirements for what they can and can't do, and then it comes down to the city and the elected officials making sure that those codes are followed, and that we don't necessarily grant exceptions. There are sometimes exceptions granted, and it's really case by case. But really it comes down to what do we require in the zoning code.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, that's the last one.
Well, we are running a little bit late into Mary's presentation. I'm going to run the other poll about your comfort levels while I load up Mary's presentation, and she has a couple of polls as well. So Thank you so much. And again, if we don't get to all the questions, we will go ahead and do that. Let me share. Make another attendee. There we go. There you go, Mary.
All right, let's see.
Did it work?
Control of keyboard. Screen sharing. Okay, let's see. How's that? Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
And is it big?
It looks beautiful, and you're on top. Some
Wonderful.
people are having
All right.
trouble though when they see you. I think there were some comments that they prefer not because then the screens are bigger. Just a heads up.
All right. So I will say hello and then I will hide myself again. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary DeLau, and I'm the program manager for Walk Arlington. We're part of the active transportation team for Arlington County Commuter Services. And I'm honored to be here today to participate in the Safe Walking Summit. And I want to thank Debbie Spiliotopoulos for her leadership and all her hard work to bring everyone together and to make this event happen in an online format. I think you've really done a wonderful job, Debbie, so thank you. So I think many of us share a love of walking and a love for the freedom we all feel when we're getting places on foot. And I know we also all share a deep concern for the safety of people walking. And as Debbie mentioned earlier, when we asked everyone how we all define walkability when we registered for this summit, I noticed a large majority of people identified safety and accessibility and equity for all as key factors in their definition of what makes a place walkable. So I'm really eager for our conversations today that will move us towards safer walking for people in our communities. So we have about 20 minutes for this segment of the program. So it takes me about 10 minutes to get through my slides. And then after that, I'm hoping we'll be able to have a good conversation. And then I think we'll also do a few quick polls just to get a sense of the major concerns of people in the room when it comes to pedestrian safety. And I'll share some of the latest data and research from the Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center. And then I'm hoping we'll have our good discussion at the end about what areas we jointly feel should be prioritized as we talk about improving pedestrian safety. So Debbie can take control with the first poll question for everyone. And the question is, what do you think is the most significant factor that leads to pedestrian crashes in your jurisdiction? Is it vehicle speed, the age of the driver or person walking, the vehicle size or design / safety features, the roadway type, or is it a lack of a sidewalk or a place to walk? So are you able to share that poll, Debbie?
I am so sorry. I have a barking dog. Okay.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, let me get the
There we
poll up.
go.
Great. So give it a minute, I think.
Okay.
So how about another 10 seconds? Everybody get your info in. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So shall I do the second question now, or can we see the results?
Well, we can, wait, I'm sorry. Let me see. So I want to show, let's see, manage polls. It's doing something else strange. Okay, so poll open and make another, oh no. Corey, I think I might need your help.
Sure, do you want me to close the poll?
Yes, please, because for some reason it's making me go to the, yeah. There we go, thank you.
So should I do the second question, or should we look at the results from this one?
Do you want to look at the results for this one, and then we can put up the second one, if that's all
Okay,
right?
sure. So are they on the screen? I can't see them.
Oh, you can't see them. Oh,
No.
I can see them. Okay, so let me
maybe you could read them.
so let me share. I can tell everyone. I don't want to take away your screen. So vehicle speed gets 33%. The age of the driver or person walking gets 2%. The vehicle design or safety features gets 4%. Roadway type gets 35%, and lack of sidewalk or place to walk gets 26%.
Interesting. So we have some pretty strong first and second place choices.
Yes.
All right, good. So shall we do the second question?
Sure. For some reason, Corey, I think you need to run this because I'm having.
All right, let me see here.
So I can read it just while she's figuring that out. The second question is, which element of traffic safety do you have the most control over in your current role? So is it personal protective equipment, policies, engineering, substitution, which would be replacing a hazard, or elimination, which would be physically removing a hazard? So if you could pick one of those that you're most empowered to affect, which one would it be? So should we?
I think we can. Everybody, 5 more seconds to get your response in. Okay, I'm going to close the poll.
If we could see what the results
And
were.
I'm going to just I'll just take it back from you, and then I can,
Yeah.
I'll make me the presenter. And hopefully it'll show up. Oh my goodness, now it's not showing up.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Hey,
can see
Debbie,
it?
I just put it up there.
Okay.
PPE, 43%, policies, 24%, engineering, 30%, and elimination, 2%. So that's interesting. So the thing to think about as we go on is if we think that the major issues, the top two were vehicle speed and roadway type, and then lack of sidewalks and place to walk. So if the people in this room have control over PPE policies and engineering, how can they work together? And how can, are we able to change the areas that we think are the biggest concerns? And I think we are. So I think that's a good outcome could come of this. So great. So that's good information to have going forward. So can everyone see my screen again?
I can. I think I can.
Great.
No, I'm waiting to view. I'm sorry. There we go.
All right, great. So now that we have a sense of what our key areas of concern are, as well as our key areas of expertise, I thought it would be useful to take a look at the latest data and insights from the Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center. They just put out this document in June, so it's a very recent resource on current trends, and it also offers some recommendations for how we can make a difference. And it will be the
Mary,
source.
I'm sorry. I'm getting notice that we're waiting to see your screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're right. It's not. Okay, so it was just the cover of the report. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Great. So anyway, this is the report that I'll be going through just briefly, and it will be the source for any statistics that I mention. Pedestrians have been accounting for a growing share of all roadway users, yet pedestrian fatalities are increasing. According to the Fatality Analysis Reporting System, pedestrian fatalities increased by 53% from 2009 to 2018, while other traffic deaths increased by only 2%. The PBIC report reviews the hierarchy of controls to remind us of the tools we have available. Yet it asserts that most pedestrian crashes resulting in severe and fatal injuries arise from a complex set of factors, and it isn't necessary to understand all factors involved in every crash in order to prevent future crashes. So here's one of PBIC's key recommendations, and I thought it was worth pulling out. They said that the most important thing to do is focus on eliminating or minimizing population-wide exposure to crash risks and to address systemic inequalities. They said that this has been shown to be the most effective approach to prevent injuries, and that that's the most important thing to focus on, and it's more important than focusing on individual protective measures. Here are some key facts from the PBIC report about the conditions in which pedestrian crashes and fatalities tend to take place. This information may provide insights into areas we feel strongly about prioritizing. The largest growth in fatalities has taken place in urbanized areas. Most pedestrian fatalities occur at non-intersection locations. Even if not fatal, these crashes are also the most severe. Most pedestrian crashes occur in dark or low light conditions. The largest increase in pedestrian fatalities has occurred on principal and minor arterial roadways, and pedestrian crashes occurring on weekends between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. are among the deadliest. The report also goes into detail about some common characteristics of the drivers, vehicles, and pedestrians involved in crashes. The age of drivers in fatal crashes has been rising. The increased use of sport utility vehicles and other larger vehicles, when combined with high rates of speed, has contributed to a national rise in pedestrian fatalities. Better vehicle hood and bumper designs, as well as pedestrian collision avoidance systems, are needed. And this is according to a recent report from the National Transportation Safety Board. And speed in general is a major factor in pedestrian fatalities. And I know speed has come up before, and I just wanted to show on this slide a graph that was in a graphic from the PBIC report that really illustrates that, how much more likely a crash is to be fatal or result in serious injury for the person walking when speed increases. And finally, pedestrian injury patterns. So who is overrepresented in pedestrian incidents, both in terms of injuries and in terms of fatalities? So PBIC really singles out two groups, older adults and what they define as marginalized populations or historically underserved communities who also experience conditions less favorable to walking. And they also mention that alcohol use by both pedestrians and drivers is associated with worse pedestrian outcomes. So in terms of addressing people who face worse outcomes, PBIC also had some strong recommendations that I just wanted to emphasize. So they believe that you should not target specific groups with individual level interventions because they felt this could be stigmatizing and ineffective in changing population level pedestrian crash and injury rates. Rather, they thought it was more important to gain a better understanding of the different experiences of pedestrians and the underlying risks in order to develop evidence-based approaches. So in putting all of this information out there and in hearing what we feel qualified to address and what our major concerns are, I just would like to put it to everyone here, what pedestrian safety issues do we feel equipped to tackle together and do we feel are necessary to prioritize? So I would just welcome people to raise their hands or chime in on the chat feature.
Great. So everyone, if you could answer the question in the chat, that would be awesome. Anyone that has ideas. And Corey, if you could track that, please. Maybe give everyone a minute. I know we're already running late again. I'm sorry.
Well, we have 2 minutes, I guess.
Corey, do you see any comments coming in yet?
Yes, design is one comment. And there's a few other ones. Wayfinding and safe access for vulnerable communities. Land use, another design. We can prevent crashes by placing more crosswalks and designing wider sidewalks. We sometimes feel powerless because VDOT won't lower speed limits, or CDOT. I don't know sure if that means County DOT or Virginia DOT. VDOT, okay. Slowing speed and flow of traffic. Let's see. Somebody wants to know, can you clarify substitution versus elimination?
Oh, sure. I read substitution as replacing a hazard. So like by adding sidewalks somewhere where you might need them, and elimination would be physically removing hazards. Like an example would be if there were a car-free downtown. That would be elimination.
Right. And somebody else wrote, I think there's a role for VDOT to play in prioritizing pedestrian infrastructure. Historically, VDOT pays more attention to the asphalt portion of the right-of-way than to the concrete.
Okay.
Let's see. Policies to slow down traffic, neighborhood slow streets. We could also identify future hotspots using pedestrian counts and past vehicle crash data. Local DOTs and VDOT should work with community members and advocacy groups to redesign streets as a top priority in lieu of additional highway expansion, including safe routes to school and arterial redesign along the lines recommended by NACTO. Somebody threw out the question, anything we can do with routing by applications such as Waze or Uber, etc. How do we report unsafe sidewalks for high pedestrian areas? Somebody seconded the need for VDOT to reprioritize. They focus too much on motor vehicles. Let's see.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
That's all I've got for right now, but you care to address any of those?
No, I mean, that's all I wanted to do was just put out the information, and it's a really wonderful report that it's included in the handouts if you didn't get a chance to read it yet. So no, I just wanted to get people thinking and see what ideas came out, and maybe people will be able to talk about them later in the breakout sessions. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. I am going to introduce Kate Kraft, who is going to be the coordinator for the next session. And Kate, if you want to take it on, the next section we have is on multi-sector tools and initiatives. So I have the slide up. Kate, do you want to just use this slide up?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Mary. That was incredibly informative. And thank you, Debbie. I feel like we've learned a lot already. This panel that we're about to start is going to really start to look at some of the initiatives already being implemented in Virginia. I'm not going to have time to introduce each of the panelists. I'm going to have them introduce themselves to save on a little bit of time. But I do think it's pretty noteworthy that we have presentations ranging from public health programming to train leaders. We're going to look at some tools for the do-it-yourselfers, many of us are. We're going to look at grassroots advocates and how they are focusing on zero deaths, and even look at a large trauma center and what they're doing to prevent the use of their services, the need for their services. Each panelist will have about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll try to take questions at the end. So as always, please put them in the chat box. And I believe Jesse is up first. So Debbie, if you can give Jesse the screen, and I'm going to
Sure.
come here. And Jesse, would you please introduce yourself as you get started?
And yeah, perfect. So I'm changing the presenter right now.
Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I hope.
I can hear you great. Thank you. And we see your beautiful slides. So thank you.
Perfect. I love it when the technology works the way I think it's going to. So thank you everyone for having me. My name is Jessie Chambers, and I am the program specialist for the AARP Virginia State Office. One of my roles there is to connect people with AARP's resources for creating more livable, age-friendly communities. And this afternoon, I want to highlight a few of those resources that we have available to support the work that you're already doing to make your communities more age-friendly and specifically more walkable. And all of the resources that I'm going to talk about are readily available for you online. I believe that event organizers are going to share all of the links with you and the resources that they give you at the end of the meeting, so you don't have to worry too much about trying to memorize the links on the slides. So in 2018, AARP surveyed adults aged 18 and older across the nation to learn about what they desired most in the communities where they live. And if you want, you can find and use the results of the survey on our website. Two of the most important things that people mentioned were access to public parks and safe, well-maintained streets. 7 out of 10 adults aged 18 to 49 said that safe parks, intersections, and good sidewalks are very important to them. And when you look at adults aged 50 and older, the number jumps up to 8 out of 10. AARP's Livability Index is an online tool created by our Public Policy Institute that gives every community in the US a livability score. And it's a great tool for communities to see what areas they're doing really well in and where they have opportunities for growth. The Livability Index score rates the overall livability of the selected community on a scale from 0 to 100 based on the average of the community's score in these 7 categories: housing, neighborhood, transportation, environment, health, engagement, and opportunity. And the average community gets a score of 50. If you wanted to learn more about each category score, you could click on the category and you'll see the metrics and policies used to determine that score, as well as how it compares with other communities around the country. AARP also has a variety of free publications available for you to download or to order and have shipped to you at no cost. These publications include toolkits and how-to guides on a variety of topics, like a step-by-step guide for creating age-friendly parks and public spaces that we created in partnership with 880 Cities and the Trust for Public Land, or a toolkit for organizing community listening sessions and focus groups. Included in our publications are our walk audit resources, which are great tools to get individuals and community groups involved in your efforts to increase pedestrian safety and promote walking. They provide step-by-step instructions and checklists for examining intersections, sidewalks, driver behavior, and more. Since it's a self-directed walk audit, it can take as little or as much time as desired. The Walk Audit Toolkit is designed for individuals or smaller groups to assess the walkability of their sidewalks or streets. And the Leader Guide is designed to help you plan and manage a larger scale community walk audit or workshop event. Our new walk audit worksheets are one-pagers that are easy to print from home, easy to complete, and easy to use. They're available in English and Spanish. I think particularly now with concerns about COVID-19 and people looking to spend more time outside, these are really great resources to engage community members, both in a healthy activity and also to empower them to help make their streets more pedestrian friendly. AARP's Community Challenge Grant program is an annual grant program that provides small grants to fund quick action projects that help communities become more livable for people of all ages. The intent is that these quick projects will help spark larger changes in the community. And the projects focus on things like increasing civic engagement, creating vibrant public places, or delivering a range of transportation options. For example, last year, the town of Bedford was awarded a grant to add benches, bike racks, and signage along 3 walking and bike loops. And what I loved about this project is that they worked with a local artist to design the benches, so they also serve as public art. AARP has an award-winning weekly e-newsletter, which is the best way to stay updated about our resources, where you can learn about when you can apply for next year's challenge grant program or when a new publication is released. It contains a mix of best practices, research, and information about age-friendly efforts from around the country. So you can subscribe to that on our website or by texting the word livable to 50757. And last but not least, I want to make sure you know that in September, we're hosting a national transportation workshop to explore and strengthen transportation options that improve health, support vibrant neighborhoods, and connect people to economic, social, and civic opportunities throughout their communities. So this is going to be a free event. It's a virtual event, and everyone is welcome. So if you're interested, please go online and register and invite your colleagues.
Thank you, Jess. Jessie, are you finished?
That's it.
All right, thank you. That was great. The AARP resources are invaluable. Had we been able to do this as an in-person event, we would have been using them to go out and do a walk audit. But you'll have to do them on your own now. Thanks. Next up, Debbie, can you give the screen to Megan so we can hear about the Virginia Walkability Action Institute?
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hello?
Yes, we can
Sound
hear
great.
you. See
Okay,
your
good. Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Lopes. I work at the Virginia Department of Health in our chronic disease prevention unit in the Office of Family Health Services. I'm the Healthy Communities Coordinator, so it's a broad title, but my work really focuses on policy, system, environmental changes to help reduce chronic diseases and the burden of chronic diseases across the lifespan. The focus of my work is really focused around improving nutrition and physical activity environments for Virginia residents, and also looking at the taking a close look, being that we're at the VDH, around safety as well. And a big piece of this is really looking at the built environment. So looking at where we live, where we work, where we play, looking at the physical infrastructure, policies and plans that impact that infrastructure, ultimately overall to improve health outcomes. And all of our work at VDH is focused on improving health disparities and health equity overall. So luckily, I get to share with you more about the Virginia Walkability Action Institute, which started in 2019, and VWAI is modeled after the National Walkability Action Institute, which is led by the Center for Disease Control, as well as the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors. So on the screen right now, you'll see, I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see the overall goal of VWAI. So really focus on the pulling together multi-sectoral teams to improve population health, reduce chronic disease, increase physical activity with our focus on walkability. What we have done is, like I said before, in 2019, we started the Institute. We've had 2 cohorts go through the Institute here in Virginia. The first one in 19 and this past year in 2020. So what does the Institute look like, and what is the foundation of the Institute? So the focus is on walkability. We're trying to increase opportunities for walkability in terms of looking at infrastructure, non-infrastructure. How do we engage the community so they feel comfortable and safe so that they can improve their walkability? The circles surrounding walkability, the policies, place, and programming. The programming is really what VWI is about, what happens during VWAI. And that is focused on providing professional development, so virtual or in-person learning for our teams throughout the Institute. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. A big piece I'd like to mention too, or the other 2 circles, is thinking about places, really taking a strategic look at the places we are intervening in order to improve walkability. So if it's the intersection of public health and we're trying to improve health outcomes, really taking a closer look at the health data that we have available. So whether that's chronic disease burden data, physical activity data, also looking at pedestrian injury and fatality data, and really focusing in on the areas that those health outcomes are the worst in as we begin to prioritize activities for improvement and intervention. And so on the bottom left, under the policies piece, is a lot of the Institute is really looking at historical policies, current policies, both at the national, state, and local levels, and looking at ways we can improve those policies. On the left-hand side is the cross-sector collaboration. All of this work is really focused on a multi-sector, cross-sector approach throughout. Data and monitoring is a big piece of the work, and I'll describe more of what that looks like in a second. In terms of resources and funding, there are the most up-to-date resources that are provided to the VWI team members, and there's also funding provided to each of the teams. That fluctuates from year to year based on some of our funding resources. So this past year, teams were given $12,000 to some more support some very small startup projects based on an action plan that they developed through the Walkability Action Institute. So like I said before, it is a multi-sector approach, and this is represented throughout the Institute. And that is like from our staff. So if you look at our staff who facilitates VWAI, VDH, or our public health piece, and then we've partnered with Equitable Cities, which is a national organization. It's based out of New Jersey. Charles Brown is a national recognized transportation expert. He's a planner, and his big focus is on transportation equity. He, as well as us, help identify faculty to actually present during our learning sessions, or virtual or in person. And these individuals come from a variety of backgrounds as well. So public health, transportation, planners, engineers, researchers, individuals in the nonprofit setting and government setting. And we bring in people at the state level. So many of our VDOT partners have presented to the participants of VWAI, and at the national level, for example, National Safe Routes to School, National Association of City and County Transportation Officials, and Jessie Chambers, who just presented before me. She actually presented at VWAI this year. And then in terms of the teams that we recruit, we ask the teams to have a minimum of 5 people as part of their core team. They're welcome to have extended team members. One person has to be a public health person that comes from their health district or local health department. Another person needs to be a transportation expert, a planner or engineer. And then those other 3 other team members have looked at a variety of different people: elected officials, law enforcement, universities, schools. So it's really critical they represent a diversity group of people. The other thing I'll note too is we're really looking for a diverse group of people in terms of demographics. So in terms of race, in terms of male, female, and other areas of diversity as well. So what are some of the topics that are covered during the Institute? These are a number of topics. You'll see them here on the screen. So complete streets, health equity, transportation equity are really big foundational pieces in our distance learning modules or in-person modules. And as you can see here, there are a lot of other topics that are discussed too. So as teams go through this professional development and learning and additionally, they receive technical assistance from Equitable Cities as well as some of the faculty. They're charged with developing an action plan. And in this action plan, they must include strategies to improve health and safety for pedestrians. In the action plan, they have to develop smart objectives. They have to show short-term outcomes and long-term outcomes. They have to have a population focus. And then they also need to show kind of what their key deliverables are and how they're going to be measured. And in terms of what some of the action plans have looked like, some of them have focused on safe route to school activities, tactical urbanism projects, walking challenges, trail improvements, taking a closer look at their policies and local ordinances and what changes can be made potentially there in the near future. These are the teams from 2019 and 2020. And as you'll see, you have Central Shenandoah twice. They actually reapplied in 2020, but with a very different locality within that region that they were focusing on. So in 2020, they focused on the Waynesboro area, and in 2019, I believe it was the Stanton area that they had focused on. So their teams look different. So regions can reapply to the Institute. As the cohorts participate, we also have developed a community of practice for this, in this case, for cohorts 1 and 2, where they'll continue to engage with us as they implement their action plans in more detail. Because the goal is by the end of the institute that they have a very concrete action plan. They may have begun implementing some of those things, but it's not complete yet. So for cohort 3, we're going to be recruiting and sending out applications in September. And if you guys have further questions about VWAI, feel free to reach out to me. If you're interested in potentially forming a team and you need a public health contact, I can connect you to some of the people within our local health districts. And that's all. You're very lucky because the next 2 people that are going to be presenting are 2 of our teams from this year, Prince William County and Fairfax County. And they're going to talk with you guys more about the action plans that they've developed as being a part of the Institute.
Thank you, Megan. I was going to say that. I'm glad you did. And I believe some of our next guests are going to only be on the phone and some will have slides. So Alex, I believe you're up, but let me just remind folks, we will get to questions at the end of our session. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we will try to get to as many as we can. So Alex, to you.
Yes, can you, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We hear you, and I saw some slides just a minute ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Kate. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Venegas. I'm a principal planner for Prince William County. And today I'd like to share our walkability project and our experience with the Virginia Walkability Action Institute program. So for the first step, what we had to do is we had to assemble a team, a core team, which we included individuals from a variety of disciplines within the county. As you can see, we had representatives from the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, our Transportation Department, our Planning Office, as well as someone from our Prince William County school system. So this is an overview of the mechanisms that we use at the county level for establishing projects associated with walkability and connectivity. One of the mechanisms that we use is our comprehensive plan, specifically our transportation chapter, which we're in the process of updating. We will call it the mobility chapter now, and include complete streets and trails within that chapter. We also look at larger sections of the county, such as regional or community centers. We've developed a lot of small area plans. We currently have 9 planned, but we've only had 4 approved. But these small area plans show all the existing and proposed connectivity, pedestrian, bicycle facilities, as well as trails within those areas. We also look for collaborative projects such as the Potomac National Heritage Trail, safe routes to school, studies that we've conducted such as safety and connectivity in planned communities, our capital improvement program. And for this project, we focused more on a targeted neighborhood area, which is a Triangle Fuller Heights Road walkability and connectivity audit. Just so you have an idea of the location that we're talking about, primarily, the triangle area is highlighted in the yellow cloud area down here. It's one of our census designated areas in Prince William County. The population is approximately 1,400 individuals, and it's located 39 miles south of Washington, D.C. To the north of the study area, we have the town of Dumfries. We also have to the east, Quantico, the Marine Corps base. To the west, Prince William National Forest Park. And to the south, we have Stafford County. So this is a very important gateway into Prince William County. Some of the demographics that we looked at for this project, we looked at the demographics of the small area plan, and as you can see, it's a very diverse community with approximately 21.6% of the households speaking a language other than English at home. The median household income is very low for our area. It's $73,760. That's approximately $30,000 less than the median household for the rest of the county. And the population age of 25 or older that hold a bachelor degree or higher is approximately 21%. Some of the other demographics that we looked at included the commuting habits of the individuals that live in that area, with approximately 47% that work within Prince William County, and the remainder either work outside of the county or in another state. The tenure of the household units, as you can see, a little less than half are owner occupied, with the majority being renter occupied. So for our project, we used the logic model framework as our roadmap to determine how we work through the process from this, establishing the situation all the way to the outcomes that we would like to see for this project. So for some of the current situations and issues that we noticed, there were numerous gaps in the pedestrian and bicycle network within the study area. This lack of connectivity increases the likelihood of isolated communities, which we didn't want to have, and a heavy reliance on automobiles to reach their destination points, both within the Triangle study area and outside of the area. A lot of the pedestrian and bicycle crossings had significant challenges, and that limited people's access to important facilities and public amenities within the area. All these challenges do have an adverse effect on health, because people, that can't walk to these areas put a more heavy reliance on automobiles and public transit. And an incomplete pedestrian facilities usually have a greater impact on seniors, children, and those residents of lower incomes, because they don't have that access to automobiles. So we focused our target area on this blue highlighted cloud, the Fuller Heights Road area. We wanted to conduct a walkability and connectivity audit, and we used the Virginia Walkability Action Institute grant to help us with that process. Another one of the inputs we looked at, we established partnerships, and these are some of our partners and resources that we used throughout the process. We used our local health department. We also used Megan and Melissa from the Central Virginia Department of Health. They were very helpful as subject matter experts and helped us through this process. And as Megan had mentioned before, we reached out and we had Charles Brown as one of the subject matter experts that helped us throughout this process. We were very fortunate to get support from the Potomac District Supervisor, Andrea Bailey, and her Chief of Staff. And we also utilized a consultant, AECOM, to help us through this process. Some of the additional resources were the learning modules that Megan had mentioned earlier. They were very good distant learning modules that helped us understand the process and what we were looking for and how we can establish some of these items such as equity and making sure that we serve and engage underserved populations. We also looked at other learning opportunities outside of the Virginia Walkability Action Institute program. And again, we had office hours with Megan and that group as subject matter experts that helped us focus more on our, getting a greater focus on our project, and also providing input that was very helpful to us. The financial resource that we used was the grant that the Virginia Walkability Action Institute provided. And we also used several background documents that we studied. Some of them were internal to our organization, as well as we looked at federal, state, and other municipalities to get some guidance on how we could move this project forward. For the activities, the first step that we looked at, we used our GIS and county mapper to look at our existing pedestrian bicycle facilities. And as you can see, the area that we highlighted had a lot of gaps in there. And so the next step that we did is we brought in our subject matter experts and we had a community site visit. And the reason that's helpful is because a lot of times the GIS and county mapper, while they'll show you what pedestrian and bicycle facilities exist in the area, they really don't give you the current condition of those facilities. So it's always helpful, it's my experience, to always go out and make sure that you field verify what's shown in the GIS system. So from that, we developed our intent, which is to improve the connectivity and safety of pedestrian bicycle facilities within the study area to establish health and transportation equity for the residents in the Triangle community. This is the action plan that Megan had described earlier. This is the one that we used as being in cohort 2, we developed this as our action plan for the Triangle study area. Again, our action plan was to improve the overall safety and connectivity of the pedestrian bicycle facilities to and within the study area. So our first objective was to obtain background data to establish a recommendation to improve that connectivity and safety within those key areas within the Triangle area. Our first strategic action was to conduct a walkability and safety audit of the Fuller Heights and Triangle Road to include recommendations and an implementation plan to improve the area based on the gap analysis that we conducted. We wanted to make sure that the residents had access to these a variety of amenities and services in the area. We also wanted to make sure that they not only had access to these services and amenities in the area, but we also wanted to make sure that they had access to bus stops along the Route 1 corridor to give them access to other community and regional destinations. And then we wanted to take this gaps and infrastructure analysis as well as our proposed recommendations in a report and present it to our county executive and leadership team for consideration to incorporate into our capital improvements program. And the next strategic action through the grant, we were able to purchase several kiosks that we intend to install. We've ordered them and we want to install them in the Fuller Heights and Locust Shade Prince William County parks. And with those kiosks, once they're installed, they will show the existing trail system within the park, but also connectivity to key locations outside of those two parks. And then the third strategic action we wanted to take is we wanted to design a streetscape renderings or guidelines for future pedestrian bicycle facilities, landscaping and amenities within the study area. And we want to use these as development applications come in. We can share those with the developers so that they're aware of our needs and they can, either proffer that in or work with the county staff to make sure that these items are incorporated to make the area much more pedestrian friendly. So those were the three strategic actions that we took, and we intend to continue this process through December 2022. And we will continue to work with Megan and the Virginia Walkability Action Institute to make sure that we hit our key goals and make sure our metrics are met. And so our path moving forward for the Triangle Walkability Action Plan, the first strategic action, we need to use the information that we get from the report, and we want to incorporate it into an upcoming charrette that we have for the community to get their feedback on the recommendation and implementation plan that we have for these improvements in that area. And then take that information from both the report and the charrette and present it to our county executive and leadership team so that we can incorporate it, or at least consider to incorporate it into our capital improvement program. And then with the kiosks, since we've already placed the order form, we plan to have them installed within the next 3 months, have a ribbon cutting ceremony, and use those to give people in the community a better understanding of the connectivity and key amenities and trails within the area. And then the last action step, we need to work with our consultant to develop those design guidelines for pedestrian and bicycle facilities and form-based designs that promote a walkable community within that triangle area. And in a nutshell, that's it. Any questions for our team?
Thank you, Alex. We're going to move on and we'll be back to you with any questions. Clearly, you guys have done a lot of work and are poised to do great things. Next, we have next we have Jason, who may just be on the phone, or should we give him the screen as well?
I think Sally has the screen, and I think Jason's on the phone.
Okay, you want to give Sally the screen, and Jason, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Second Lieutenant Jason Long with the Fairfax County Police Department Traffic Safety Section. I worked with Sally and a bunch of others on this, our plan for the Walkability Action Institute, and Sally's going to be the one presenting on it and what we did. So I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, my name is Sally Smallwood. I'm the Safe Routes to School Coordinator for Fairfax County Public Schools, and this was our Virginia Walkability Action Team, both FCDOT, Health and All Policies. Anna Ricklin was in charge. We also were fortunate to have Board of Supervisors, Dahlia Paulcheck, on with us, 2 of her assistants, and then you heard from Lieutenant Long, and then Captain Edmonds, and then myself as well. I'm going to try to go quickly since you have, we were tasked with finding where to decide on doing our plan. And so we finally started out in the Seven Corners area, but then decided to go a little further west and decided on the intersection of Graham Road and Arlington Boulevard, which is a heavily populated area and also heavily traveled. Only 12% of the population, or just 12% of the population, does not have a car. There's a large apartment complex across one side, the north side of Route 50, and then a grocery store on the south side. So a lot of traffic going back and forth, and it's also a place where a lot of accidents have occurred in the past. So here's, we use the TREDS data to determine where we had issues, and that's what you see here. And then there are opportunities and challenges. There's a photo here of showing the intersection. This intersection, in addition to the 2 main arteries, Graham Road and Route 50, also has service roads, which makes it very difficult to cross. At least on one of our walkthroughs over in that area, almost witnessed mother and child being hit by a car that didn't quite come to a stop on that right turn on red, trying to pull out onto Route 50. So it was definitely an area that we felt that could be made safer. And so our team goal was we wanted to increase walkability in this area, and mostly what we wanted to do was come up with a plan for all of Fairfax County, so that if a community wanted to make a change in their area for walkability, they could by going to a website or a place where they would know what actions they needed to take in order to initiate some changes in their community, whether it was slowing down traffic or addressing an issue that made pedestrian safety unsafe, or missing sidewalks, or that kind of thing. So that was part of our action plan, was to use walk audits and come through with being able to show a community how to and make improvements in their area, but also if FCDOT is anticipating making changes, a way for them to engage the community. So one of our action plans was we did of our demonstration projects is we did go out to the community at during the food distribution, where parents and children come and pick up food for the day. So we had a survey. We did it 2 times using PPE, which made it difficult, but it was more of a conversation with people, but answering a set of questions. And I think there were 3 open answer questions where they could answer, and they were able to see a map of where areas where they had the most concerns. And some of the things that came out of that were longer times on the crossing, so that pedestrians had more time to get across the road. Of course, suggestions of having a pedestrian overpass, because down in the Seven Corners area, there is a pedestrian over a bridge. That's not something we can tackle at this time because of the cost. So what we came up with for our other actionable project would be a traffic garden. This is the apartments are right next to a community building that was once the elementary school that's been moved further north on Graham Road, but the building is still used for various community activities such as English second language classes. But we're going to put in a traffic garden on the unused blacktop space there. That way we can provide an education. We've talked also about a possibility of having a nonprofit run a bike club for both kids and adults to repair bikes and get them in working order. We'll work with the after school program that's in the building to educate the leaders or train the trainers on how to use the traffic garden that will be put down on the blacktop. But the bulk of our funding, our grant funding from the Virginia Walkability Action Institute, will go into the traffic garden and some signage and some work on education. And that's in a nutshell what our Action Institute. We very much appreciated the opportunity to work with Megan and her team to educate ourselves and work together as a team to pull together. And these initiatives will work well with our Active Fairfax that's being launching soon, and our Healthy Living Fairfax, our CHIP goals that we've had for that as well. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Jason. I've never heard of a traffic garden. That's exciting. While we get Henry, give him the screen and get ready. You know, if we were in an in-person walking summit, we'd probably want you to stand up and stretch or walk around a little bit. So feel free to do that in the privacy of your own home while we hand the screen to Henry and the mic. Thank you. I see.
Hi, this is Henry. Can I get confirmation you can hear me?
I can hear you and I see your slides.
Excellent, excellent. So I will provide a brief overview of 2 national programs, both of which Arlington has implemented that communities can use to help both rate and improve their walkability. Some of the other communities in Northern Virginia are also employing these. And so, you know, we'll give you sort of really just a basic look at what it takes, and I'm happy to answer questions afterward about how to do a deeper dive into these. But first, my name is Henry Dunbar. I'm Director of Active Transportation Operations for Arlington County and oversee the Walk Arlington, Bike Arlington, Capital Bike Share, and now Micromobility, which includes the dreaded scooters, you know, encouraging people to use those for our county transportation department. First, the Walk Friendly Communities rating program is run by the University of North Carolina Highway Safety Research Center and supported by the Pedestrian Bicycle Information Center, which was referenced earlier with their great study that they just recently put out. This program encourages communities to do a deep assessment of the walkability, looking particularly at issues of safety, mobility, access, and comfort, and really with a goal toward improving them and finding ways that they can do this better. I would like to call out my colleague Lauren Hassel, who is now the Arlington Public Schools Safe Routes to Schools coordinator, who has been the central coordinator on Arlington's past 2 applications to get our gold level walk-friendly rankings. These are not insignificant undertakings when you do them, but that substance is very important to really bring about the kind of improvements that hopefully your community would want to see. So in applying to be rating, you're going to be asked to look at your community across all aspects, and including the usual 5 E's that I've talked about many times: engineering, evaluation, enforcement, education, and encouragement. But I include the 5+ because many evaluation programs and communities are starting to add others, including equity and engagement. They're not a uniform and not in the traditional sense that we've heard about for many years. But it's very interesting when we start doing these assessments now, how the intersection of some of these E's actually come with kind of loaded questions. Like the League of American Bicyclists has removed the enforcement E from their bike-friendly community evaluation because of the historic, inequities in which those have often been enforced or applied. And when we talk about trying to reach our most vulnerable communities and our marginalized communities, enforcement, has not always been applied equally across. The application within the Walk-Friendly Communities program, as I mentioned, it is substantive. It's over 60 pages long, and looking at the different aspects. 8 different sections of it include a community profile, status of walking, the 5 E's that I've mentioned before, and a planning section about how well your community is sort of looking at walkability. Each of these sections are given a grade of either walk-friendly, on the right track, or needs attention. And then based on that, they have 5 different levels of rankings. I will say that the application process does include just myriad examples of different communities around the country with different level rankings to help the applicants, particularly first timers, understand what it is they're looking at and what level of of how well you're doing these things will get you to different ratings. Like many programs, they have 5 levels: platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and an honorable mention. The platinum level has been reached 4 times by some of the the most walkable places in their country: New York, Portland, San Francisco, and Seattle. Of course, is an image of Times Square. You think walkability in New York is of course right up there. Regionally, Washington D.C. and Alexandria, in addition to Arlington, have also gone through this process and received a gold and a silver level ranking respectively. Platinum level basically says on all different sectors of the application, you are been rated walk friendly. There's really, you're there and you're about as walk friendly as they get. Gold, like Arlington, means we're either walk friendly or on the right track with no sections that need improvement, and of course on down the line for the different level ratings. To honorable mention, where you're really looking to improve in almost all sectors. There are many benefits to applying that they encourage you. Again, the biggest one is probably the self-assessment, really trying to understand and look at your community and look at your areas where you need to improve. You also get the feedback from the reviewers. These are industry experts who will take a look at your application, to really help you understand where you can improve and how. Oftentimes, then staff level will use these assessments as justifications, for what we're doing and how we're going to go about doing it. And of course, it always helps to have the civic pride when you can win these, these badges of honor. Much like Arlington, like I said, we've been able to do this and have been rated a gold-friendly walk community for many years. Some of the things cited on the list here are pedestrian element of our master transportation plan, and of course, some of the education encouragement programs that I have the good fortune of working on. So again, that's primarily an assessment tool. And I'll now talk a little bit about Vision Zero, which is a much more comprehensive look at really implementing change. I'd say this is a tool people can sort of use, but in a lot of cases, it's looking at the situation as it is, and not so much about policy and how you're going to change it later. But with Vision Zero, this is a program that implemented initially in Sweden, and it takes a holistic look at safety with a goal to achieve 0 deaths or serious injuries on our roadways and transportation system. So it's not specifically a pedestrian or an active transportation program, but really looking at all and trying to remove, all causes of fatalities and serious injuries with these different 5 aspects, that you review in the process of setting up a plan and sort of how to address these. This really lays out the approach of Vision Zero and how it's different than the way many communities have sort of looked at it. And I put this slide in here because it really just nails it down. A lot of times when we talk in our transportation worlds about, deaths and injury, and you get that, well, it's unavoidable. There's just, there are always going to be some. And Vision Zero philosophy is that, no, they are preventable and there are things that we can do. We also try to approach it from a systemic way and implement and plan for the human failings rather than just say, well, people are going to do what they're going to do. Since we know that, then we need to be able to build our roadways and our transportation systems in ways that we can prevent the fatal and severe crashes, knowing full well that humans are going to be humans and do what they're going to do. The other thing is, the final bullet is that a lot of times we get told, well, we just can't do that. It just costs too much. And Vision Zero does not accept that. They say that saving lives is not expensive, particularly if we design our transportation system in a way that, we need to. Vision Zero is being adopted more and more across the country. Over 40 cities in the US have already done it. Again, regionally, Alexandria, DC, Prince George's, and Montgomery County and Maryland. So in some ways, Arlington is trailing a little bit on this, and that's fine. We're catching up, but we're finally there doing it. The other critical thing I will note that Vision Zero requires buy-in from your elected bodies. Your elected officials, your governing body needs to be at the fore of this and accepting it. So staff-driven initiatives are not the way this goes. And that's true with Arlington County. This has been something that was called for by the Arlington County Board. And, again, it approaches things holistically and not just from a transportation perspective. When Arlington began this process, one of the reasons I would just say we were a little slow to it because we looked at a lot of what we were doing, and a lot of the Vision Zero type initiatives in other places Arlington was already doing. We just didn't have that label. Sort of a piecemeal thing and say, yes, we're doing these things, and it looks a lot like what we're already doing, but we haven't just adopted the Vision Zero thing. We looked a lot at our statistics, as you can see on this slide, and comparing ourselves to some of our neighbors who had adopted Vision Zero, and we actually compare very good. So in some ways, we weren't necessarily being pushed because we had a pretty good sense that we were on the right track, if you will, to borrow the walk-friendly phrase, that it wasn't necessarily needed. But Arlington County Board in July of last year did adopt a Vision Zero resolution, charging staff to come up with a plan and how we can implement and really take to heart the goals of Vision Zero to try to really improve. Even though we felt we were doing pretty good already, this was what we were tasked to do. So again, I apologize for moving through these quickly to get us back on track. So our program looked at all the different departments within the county government that needed to be involved. Many of these are non-transportation agencies that are going to be in from the very beginning, including public planning, housing, and development, also the Parks Department and our emergency management programs, which again are not always part of what you would think of a traditional transportation agencies. Our internal working group has over 20 people that meet on a regular basis from, like I said, the 8 different departments with 6 sub-bureaus within those departments, all represented and being part of the process. On the right-hand side, you can sort of see, again, the 5 E's that are driving this, again, the traditional ones, including the engagement, which is an E that, you know, we've also felt was critical to our planning and our implementation of this program. So, as I said, looking at our historic data and how we've done in fatalities and serious injuries, we felt we were doing pretty good, but we also acknowledge that we've got a long way to go in looking at our baseline information. We've identified many gaps and have started putting our plan into place. Part of that, of course, in our process is a robust public engagement strategy. We started this earlier this year, like so many other initiatives. The COVID pandemic kind of put the brakes on things. We had some open houses as forums, we had pop-up events, and we were doing all of that very robustly going into March, and then things were sort of put on hold. So this is our plan and our strategy, and it's still in effect as we move through this. We also have a very large external stakeholders group that again met twice with over 50 different people on this group, and many of the people involved include civic associations, different advisory commissions and committees. The business improvement districts are represented, advocacy and interest groups, and members of the public are invited to attend all of these things to help us in these different areas, providing the insight and the feedback that we need to know about the community beyond the government and local officials, what we need. We get from the public through this engagement process and this external stakeholders group. So the plan is, as we started in earnest last November internally, coming up with a plan and went through that through this spring, and we are now here right about in the middle of the whole process. We had planned to have it done within a year and hope to have it before our county board in November, but we had to reevaluate again since the public engagement part was suspended this spring, and we will be kicking off phase 2 of public engagement in October with new virtual events and other ways that we can engage the external stakeholders that we were doing before. So our new timeline now is to finish up the action plan by the end of the year and get it out to the public, circulate it, again, revise it, and then hopefully before our county board early next year in April or May of 2021. So that is how we are approaching it. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions after, but that's Arlington's approach, again, using these 2 tools, the Walk Friendly Communities Program and Vision Zero.
Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome.
We at America Walks are big fans of the Walk Friendly Community Awards. I hate to have to admit it, but we are going to run a little over. With that, Linda, we want to give you the screen and
I'm here.
Okay. I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Although you can't see me, we were having some issues, but I will talk very quickly because really I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because we all know about the power of collaboration with our community partners. My name is Linda Watkins, and I'm Injury Prevention and Outreach Coordinator with ANOVA Trauma Services. I'm also the Safe Kids Fairfax County Coalition Coordinator. My job is primary prevention, so it is essentially to reduce the number of preventable injuries that come through our hospital system. I would akin my job to dropping a ball of gumballs on the floor and chasing them, because I do everything from infants through seniors. So that is my injury focus. So we do support all areas around the county and DC metro area. And we feel like it's a win-win because we have the recognition of the Safe Kids name as well as the recognition of our great lead agency. Some of the support that we receive is through trauma funds, state trauma funds. We have some grants that we receive through Safe Kids Worldwide, and in-kind donations and services from members of the community. But the most important part of our treasure trove of things that we have is our community partners. So with the objectives, we want to make better use of our resources because I'm only one person, and usually in every level 1 trauma center, there is only one person that does injury prevention, and they do it throughout that entire scale of from birth through senior ages. So we want to strengthen our ability to reach all the areas of the county and the vulnerable populations by identifying the key stakeholders and target audiences. And we can't do that alone. We definitely need the collaboration of our community members. I have been on a number of committees with a lot of you, and we have used a lot of your resources in some of our outreach. So I'll go very quickly kind of through how we develop our plans and how we reach out to our community. So we start with our injury and death data, which helps us to develop our focus. Our injury and death data, usually the most recent we can get is 3 months, but 6 months is usually where we are. So we don't have the most recent, but we do utilize some of the other resources that are available in order to get that death and injury data. And we kind of let that guide our focus, but that's not the only way that we utilize that data. We sometimes do it based on an ask. So if there is an organization that asks us to participate in an event and it is part of our focus, we can do that. We also do emergent issues. So if there is an issue, say a couple of years ago, there was the Tide Pods with the young people, and we were asked to do some outreach on that. So we did that. Safe Kids also put out some information. So sometimes it's emergent issues, and sometimes it's just an observance. So we participate in the Bike to School days and the Walk to School days because those are things that normally we participate in. We try to start small in asking our partners because we do know that everybody has a job to do and everybody has their own job. And again, I do know that as a person that works with the community, that everybody wears lots of hats in the job that they do. So we try not to just focus on monetary things that we can do, because our real reach is to reach out to the community and to reach those populations that may not have as much access. And we try to look for traditional partners, but I would say since I have been involved with this job and with Safe Kids, you have got to reach non-traditional partners. Okay, so we try to do lots of things, but you don't have to do everything. Okay, so some of our partners come from our Safe Kids research. So we have national partners with Johnson & Johnson, FedEx, Safe Routes to School, DEA, Child Passenger Safety, and car dealerships. And those are just to name a few. So we want to find our support. So once we have identified the priorities, we have to consider some things. We have to find the people that have the expertise in the area of work that we're trying to do. So we reach out to the communities and try to find those community champions or find partners that are already doing the work, that are excited and passionate about doing the work, and try to engage them to help us. And of course, you got to find the funding. Now, sometimes, most of the times we have funding, and we can provide things, but it's just providing the people power is what you need. So even if it is in kind, so things like maybe sharing some radio and television time, or training and event space, use of equipment and supplies, connecting with your audience, or just staff time, people volunteering their time, then those are the things that we need. But of course, next slide, Debbie, there are some limitations. So you have to know the ranges and the limitations of your agency. So of course, I don't have unlimited resources, and I don't have unlimited people power. So that is where the community collaboration comes in. And you have to know your partner's strengths. Go out and ask them what they can do and not just assume what they can do. So I'll go over very quickly kind of some of the lessons learned that we have had that have challenged our limitations. Identifying and recruiting partner organizations. Sometimes it's hard because people sometimes think it's competition, and it's not competition. And providing access to the families. So we had an event that we participated in over at Bailey's, and this was one of the initial events that I participated in. And we worked with the Bailey's Community Center and the Head Start in order to set up the event. So it was a bicycle rodeo and a helmet giveaway for elementary school kids and middle school kids. But we ended up giving out more helmets and bike lights for the older population. We gave out a lot to the kids, but a lot of those people that came to the event rode bicycles to work and did not have a helmet, did not have lights. So we just kind of learned that sometimes you have to switch up what you're doing. There are so many diverse people in so many languages, so you have to decide what you're going to focus on, and you have to make sure that you are able to accommodate everybody. And sometimes it's hard to gain the trust, because if you don't identify those local and community champions, then you might not get that trust, and people may not want to come to an event because they're afraid. And even your best laid plans, sometimes you have to switch up, like we did for the bike rodeo. And then you have to work on schedules and flexibility, because people work and they may not be able to bring their kids out or bring their youth out or come out during the time that you need. So you just have to kind of identify what you need, find your community champions, and work on that. We also do not want to reinvent the wheel. We want to use tried and true programs that people are already using, and we can jump on. We would just like to, get on with you if you have programs that are available. When we are doing our branding, we can co-brand. We always use our Safe Kids logo and our Inova logo on any flyers or anything that we put out. So, because both are well-known and respected names. So, one thing that we've done as far as partnership is, in our area, we have 5 level 1 trauma centers. So with those level 1 trauma centers, we decided in 2011 that trauma is not competition, because there's enough trauma to go around. So we decided to join forces, and we established the DC Trauma Injury Prevention Coordinators Collaborative, which is comprised of George Washington University Hospital, Inova Fairfax Hospital, Howard University Hospital, MedStar Hospital Center, and PG Hospital, Prince George's Hospital. So with that coalition, because there's only one of us in everyone, we've been able to maximize our resources. We've been able to assist each other with a variety of events and just give that support. So with partnerships, find who is already doing the work. What can we do better together than alone? Because we can always do much more when we work together. Make people feel like their part is meaningful. So we want to make sure that you feel like your part is meaningful and what you are doing is much needed by us. We want to promote, like I said, collaboration over competition, because none of it's competition. Allow for the input of everyone. So we want to hear your ideas. And we want you to have an opportunity to share, not only in what we do, but we want to share in what you do as well. So we always want to think outside of the box as well. So if you have ideas that we haven't thought of, we're always interested. So again, don't be afraid to reach out to others, people that are doing the same thing. So some of the things that we like to do is we're doing ongoing recruitment. So if you would like to be a part of any of our programs, then please feel free to reach out to us. We want to create a win-win relationship because we want you to benefit as well as us, and we can find a common interest to work towards. So I know I went through that pretty fast and I had a few other things probably, but I want to make sure that we get out of here on time. So thank you so much for your interest in community collaborations, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you to all of our panelists. In the interest of time, I don't think we're going to get to questions, but what I will say is everyone will have the contact information of all these great panelists. Please reach out to questions and that they have. Obviously, a wealth of information and resources available in the state, and we want to make sure that you know how to contact them and you're able to use them as need be. So thank you to the panelists, and I'm going to turn it to Debbie to walk us into our next block of work.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. And I have to reiterate that it's just been amazing, amazing presentations. I know it was a lot of information over, and I'm sorry for folks feeling rushed. I hope we can get some more in-depth discussion, both in the upcoming calls and also on the in follow-up. I wanted to let you know, we have 3 calls set up. It's on this the screen right now, I believe. There's also, if you go to your drop down, there's a place that says handouts. I think you all have that, and you can pull off the agenda, and the agenda has the phone numbers. So there are 3 options: the training material, which is some work that America Walks is working on with NVRC to put together some training materials related to promoting walkability and walking audits. Option 2 is to get into some more, and it's an opportunity for you to talk with the speakers as well as the moderators on community generated information, performing audits, as well as I think Mike Doyle is going to be on that one to talk about the near miss survey. And then option 3 is on engaging communities, and Linda has graciously offered to be on that with Henry and Megan. So we have 3 great options. I'm going to be dialing into option 2. Corey's dialing into option 3. So give us how about a 4-minute break? I'm going to close this out, open the new one, and get the phone number opening, and then please go ahead and dial in. I hope that works for everyone, and thank you all so much for sticking with this. And this concludes the webinar, this part of the webinar. I will be sending out materials following this for all of you. And thank you all so much for everything that you all are doing.